G'day guys and gal. The Horus Heresy was absolutely full of pivotal moments and epic feats of power that continually swung the balance of power between the Loyalists and the traitors. However, nothing made quite as much impact as the Istvaan Dropsite Massacre, where the Raven Guard, Iron Hands and Salamanders were more or less wiped out, with Vulcan being taken prisoner and Ferrus getting killed, whilst the traitor legions barely took any real damage from it. It was probably the most decisive victory of the entire heresy, but could the Loyalists have actually won? Could it be possible that a different combination of Loyalist legions could have actually overcome the surprise bukkake that the traitors delivered? Before we get started, I have some pretty delicious Christmas merch for you guys and gal that I know is going to be a hit. Just look at this Christmas hat. That is awesome. But before I can open these up for sale or to show you the other goodies that are coming, I want to give everyone one last chance to pick up the 400k Majorkill merch. There isn't much stock left and this design will never be repeated or brought back. So if you want to be a part of history and support the channel, then the link is below. Today we'll discuss if the Istvaan Dropsite Massacre was genuinely winnable for the Loyalists if they had used 3 different legions. And if not winnable, then at least which trio of Loyalist legions would have fared the best. Let's get into it. For a quick rundown on what happened for those of you who aren't addicted to the lore of the plastic crack, Horus had just been revealed as a traitor and fortified a world called Istvaan V, with the help of the World Eaters, Emperor's Children and Death Guard. The Emperor sent out most of his legions to crush Horus. First to land in the vanguard was the Iron Hands, Salamanders and Raven Guard, who would then be later backed up by the Iron Warriors, Night Lords, Word Bearers and Alpha Legion. However, after the initial clash and arrival of the supposedly loyal reinforcements, it was revealed that the Iron Warriors, Night Lords, Word Bearers and Alpha Legion were also traitor. Hence they opened fire on the surprise Salamanders, Iron Hands and Raven Guard. This quickly led to a massacre in which about 95% of the Loyalist forces were slaughtered. Ferrus Manus was killed, Vulcan was taken prisoner and Corvus staged a desperate escape. It kicked the Loyalists in their tender balls and gave Horus a massive advantage in the early stages of the heresy. That's more or less the rundown of what actually happened, but not necessarily what could have been. Before we choose which Loyalist legions should have gone to Istvaan, let's look at why the Loyalists fared so badly in the first place. Beyond, the fact that they got absolutely turbo-raped from both sides by a massive enemy force. First up, the 3 legions sent, that being the Iron Hands, Salamanders and Raven Guard, were not particularly good choices for this type of engagement. The battleground was a hilly chewed up bog that had fuck all cover. It was basically no man's land which didn't allow much room for genuine strategy. As such, the battle turned into more or less a Leroy Jenkins for both sides. This sucks for the Raven Guard, who were the ultimate stealth and infiltration legion. Whenever the Raven Guard are forced into this fucky full send warfare, they always suffer greatly, as shown by their massive amount of casualties during the Battle of Gate 42. The Iron Hands were actually quite well suited to this grueling battle. However, Ferrus was way too emotional due to Fulgrim's betrayal, and he continued to charge in whilst the Salamanders and Raven Guard fell back. This guaranteed the destruction of the Iron Hands, as even if the arriving legions didn't end up entering the list of top 10 anime betrayals, Ferrus would still have been killed and his legion crushed. The Salamanders were okay for Istvaan, but not great. Their love of flame-based weaponry means they excel in close quarter combat, where they could more or less just torch down corridors. Open fields aren't great for the shorter range flame weapons. On top of that, none of the Loyalist legions were particularly large when compared to the Ultramarine or Dark Angel legions. In fact, Horus specifically manipulated events so that he would face these 3 Loyalist legions in particular. He had sent the Dark Angels to the edges of space and tricked Sanguinius into getting ambushed by demons ages away as well. But what if the Emperor had his pick of exactly who to send? Who would have been best? Well, definitely not the Space Wolves. They had a similar temperament to the Iron Hands and wouldn't have the discipline to properly react to the betrayal. They would have probably done a better job than the Iron Hands, killing more traitors, with Lehman likely taking down a traitor Primarch himself before he was torn down. But overall, a similar impact and result, just with more traitor casualties. The White Scars also wouldn't have been a great choice for changing the result, although their casualty rate would be a lot lower as they would be able to retreat and skirmish once the betrayal was revealed. The Khan himself would have had a good chance of surviving the battle and escaping Istvaan. Funnily enough, it's actually stated in lore that if Dorn and his entire legion of Imperial Fists were to go to Istvaan, then he would have probably been able to crush the traitors then and there. The Imperial Fists were a massive and very powerful legion, with Dorn being a perfect commander for such a volatile battle. Not to mention the Phalanx would give them space superiority, allowing him to control the skies, resupply his warriors and if needed, perform an orderly withdrawal. withdrawal. Their ability to dig in and fortify would also be extremely clutch for when the betrayal was revealed, and the attempted spit roast would begin. However, in canon, it was also stated that despite Dawn likely being able to crush Horus then and there, leaving the throne world undefended would result in the Alpha Legion taking it and winning the heresy for Chaos anyways. So despite Dawn's Legion being the best to send, they were the only one the Loyalists weren't allowed to use. So this leaves us with the obvious choice. The Blood Angels, Ultramarines, and Dark Angels would have been the best 3 legions to send and would have likely achieved a victory over the traitors despite how fucked the situation was. Here's why. Firstly, these 3 legions were led by extremely tactical and level-headed Primarchs. There would be no full retard Leroy Jenkins suicide charge. Orbital bombardments would soften up the traitors' anti-air defenses and allow the Loyalists to land unmolested. Then they could set up their own fortifications and engage the traitors in intelligent combat that suited the strengths of these Loyalist legions. This takes away the traitors' insta-win card and complicates things greatly. These Loyalist legions, especially the Ultramarines, were fucking massive, so despite still being outnumbered, the Loyalists still had a pretty good shot. After some skirmishing, the battle would begin in earnest. Dark Angel Terminators backed up by enslaved men of iron and a bunch of war crime tier weaponry would devastate the traitor lines, whilst Blood Angel forces would drop pod in for their classic shock and awe tactics. Ultramarines would secure key objectives and areas, feeding priceless tactical information to the other Loyalists. Sanguinius would be able to quickly engage key targets, including traitor Primarchs whom Sanguinius would either be able to fight off or even kill. When the secretly traitorous reinforcements would arrive, the Lion would order them to join in on the assault rather than the broken Loyalists running up to them and requesting aid, opening themselves up to being slaughtered at close range. The reinforcements would not reply, and the Lion's instinct would tell him that something was off, which his brain would back up as he realized the reinforcements were not acting in accordance to how they should. At a similar time, Sanguinius' foresight would also likely show him the true nature of their reinforcements, giving the Loyalists pre-warning of what was to occur. As such, the Loyalists would be able to orderly withdraw to their fortifications and prepare for the Great Betrayal. The original traitor legions would have a hard time harassing or following the Loyalists, as they would have just been clapped extremely hard by the Loyalist onslaught, spearheaded by the Lion's war crimey toys and Sanguinius' might. Horus would spring his trap, and the Night Lords, Iron Warriors, Alpha Legion, and Wordbearers would open fire on the Loyalists from the other side. However, instead of cutting down thousands of Loyalists in seconds, the prepared Loyalists will have taken cover, put up shielding, and would already be returning fire. If anything, the Loyalists would have fired first, knowing what was about to happen. This is already a way better start than what actually happened in canon. However, we still have 3 Loyalist legions up against 8 traitor legions who had them surrounded. Although they would be hard to beat, eventually the Loyalists would be cut down. To avoid this, they would need to sally out and attack either the newly arrived traitors or the traitors that they had just been fighting. The best option would be to re-engage the original traitors led by Horus. Horus's overconfidence in how outnumbered the Loyalists were would have pulled his forces out of their trenches and bunkers. They would also be worn down from the initial shock assault, and they had also purged about a third of their legions during the Istvaan atrocity sometime before. As such, their numbers would actually be notably less than the 3 Loyalist legions. On the flip side, the arriving traitors, led by Perturabo, would be fresh, more numerous, and had a much better position. As such, the Loyalists would use the Ultramarines to hold off the newly arrived traitors, using their superior tactics and high numbers, whilst the Blood Angels and Dark Angels renewed a vicious assault on Horus's forces. The Sons of Horus, World Eaters, Death Guard, and Emperor's Children would be taken by surprise by this new furious counterattack, expecting the Loyalists to instead attempt to withdraw or hunker down. Angron would probably be the first to die. Leading from the front, he would cop the brunt of the counterattack. If it wasn't mass heavy bolter fire that tore him to shreds, it would be Sanguinius. He was able to beat Demon Angron in canon, so he probably wouldn't have much issue with Mortal Angron. Fulgrim wouldn't be able to help himself, engaging the Lion in a duel of swordsmanship, a duel that the Lion would win considering he is the greatest duelist of all the Primarchs. After all, the dude was able to beat Conrad in a 1v1, despite Conrad being able to accurately see the future. At this point, Mortarion, who was already not super keen on the traitor forces due to their obsession with the warp, would likely order the Death Guard to retreat, not wishing to join his brothers in death for a cause he didn't really believe in. With 2 traitor Primarchs dead, the Death Guard falling back, and the Sons of Horus being cut down and demoralized without their Primarch near him, after all, Horus was hiding in a bunker during the battle, the original traitor forces would waver, whilst the newly arrived traitors would desperately try to break through the Ultramarines to reinforce Horus. Guilliman taking advantage of the enemy's desperation and frantic rush to inflict massive casualties. Sanguinius would seek out Horus, issuing a challenge to him that Horus wouldn't be able to resist. Sanguinius would fly to him and engage him in a titanic duel. Now I can't say for certain who would win this fight. Horus was a mighty Primarch, but he had not yet received the power bust from Chaos that he was going to receive before he would fight and kill Sanguinius in canon. Sanguinius would also be a lot fresher. When he was killed by Horus during the Siege of Terra, he had just killed Kabunda, Demon Angron, and about 1 million Traitor Marines. Dude was fucking knackered. In this circumstance, he would really had only gotten scrappy with mortal Angron, and that's a big maybe. There's no reason why a good cum blast from the Dreadwing wouldn't have put Angron down, so I would honestly give the duel to Sanguinius. Dude was just a league above his brothers when it came to epic anime battles. With Horus dead, the resolve of the traitor legions would shatter. The Night Lords would fall back, seeking to escape into the void. The Wordbearers would likely fight to the end. Lorgar being in utter disarray and despair that his destiny would not be fulfilled. The Alpha Legion would also likewise escape. Perturabo may also try run, but I have a feeling he would fight to the end, not willing to be captured or forced to run like a rat. It might not necessarily end clean for the Imperium. The Ultramarines could easily be cut down with Guilliman dying in a 2v1 against Conrad and Lorgar, forcing the Lion and his Dark Angels to hold off the traitors while Sanguinius killed Horus. It could end in the death of all the Loyalists. However, I am confident that Horus would also die before then. The reality is, it doesn't matter if every Loyalist is killed if Horus also dies. Without Horus, there is no great plan or heresy. The Loyalists win. So yes, with just 3 legions, the Loyalists could have actually won. Not via total domination, but more so cutting the head off the snake. The Lion's extreme arsenal of weapons, combined with Sanguinius being Sanguinius, as Guilliman acts as the glue that holds them together, would be an unbelievably potent weapon against the traitors. There is a reason why Horus was so desperate to keep these 3 legions out of the game for as long as possible. These were the 3 that could genuinely fuck him in the ass. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up the 400k Majorkill merch. Once this is gone, it's never coming back, so get it in your gob. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more loyal content. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.